Hi.
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 Hello.
Hello.
Seems to be working.
What the first one?
I'm just checking the streams. Okay, LinkedIn is being weird. Oh,
You mean LinkedIn is being LinkedIn?
Okay. Then cool. Then let's start. Welcome to our live session into the CAOS. It's the first one, actually. So welcome. We're excited to host a session where the team behind ZITADEL shares what happened actually over the summer, and so what did we bring in as new features to ZITADEL? What didn't go so well, maybe, and we needed to fix. And we also want to discuss a little bit of what's upcoming in the next month. We have a lot to talk about, but let's maybe quickly do an introduction so everybody knows who's here. I start myself now. I'm Max. I'm CEO of CAOS, so I'm more responsible for the business side. Yeah, Silvan, would you like to say something? Maybe.
Yeah. My name is Silvan Adlerhorst on GitHub, and I'm a software engineer at CAOS, and I'm developing a big part in the event sourcing of ZITADEL and do a lot of storage implementations.
Good, thanks. Livia?
I'm Livio. I'm backend engineer as well, doing most of the API and especially OAuth and OIDC part of ZITADEL. That's about it. Fabian?
I'm Fabian, and I have actually two roles. One is head of product. I do like all the stuff after a customer is after we have a customer, and what changes we could do and what improvements the customer has. And the second thing is that I'm also engineering in the backend of ZITADEL, mostly in some new features.
Great. Max?
Yeah, I'm the second Max of the team. I'm the front-end engineer at CAOS.
Nice. Last but not least, Florian.
I'm the only Florian. That's actually fine. So, my name is Florian. I'm the CEO of CAOS, and I'm more or less on the architecture side of things right now. And I'm one of the people who had the idea that we should build an identity system based on event sourcing. And I think it turned out great. But we will hear more about that later on. So I won't spoil the things here.
Perfect. Cool. So for the audience, please don't hesitate to ask questions. I think we can see it from two channels. We're live on LinkedIn and on YouTube. So let's start. Let's talk maybe about the new features first. I think we had a lot of stuff coming in since, let's define summer as starting of June. Let's start maybe with a big feature that we implemented, that is private labeling. So can you maybe tell me what's in there, what's private labeling, what does it mean, and how has it evolved over the last weeks?
Yes, when we started implementing ZITADEL, we fast knew that we should provide some part of customizing where we can build the branding of a company. so that they can upload their logo and the ZITADEL. And all the private labeling is about this. So now it's possible to upload on each organization a logo and the colors. And if you like, you can also upload a font. And then you will see your login in your branding. Also, we at the moment implement that also the console looks like your branding. Most of the part is also already implemented. Some small features like the font and font color is missing in the console, but in the rest of the ZITADEL, we have it implemented. Yes.
Okay, and I think what we also did in last weeks, right, is the custom texts. So we have on the one hand the colors, and so you can customize the login, you can customize the whole UI, also the profile. But we also introduced custom texts. Max?
Yeah, in addition to this appearance policy, we have 2 additional text management policies, which allow you to change the whole login interface text, which now includes about 30 pages. And the other one is the message text policy, which allows you to change your email templates. And also within console, there's a nice thing, there's those essential chips which allow you to add your personalized user data. So it's easy to edit, and these are the text management policies, And in addition to those, we have the privacy policy, which allows you to change the location of your TOS and your privacy policy link.
Okay. I mean, that's available in the product itself. So in the open source version, it's completely included, and I think we staggered it across the different subscription tiers in the SaaS offering. So I think you get the basic stuff, so colors, logos, editing. You get already right from the Outpost tier, and then with higher tiers, you get, I guess, the higher features like changing text or customizing text, customizing email templates, etc. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yes, that's correct.
Good. Then I'm up to speed. It's good to know. Perfect. Maybe, I mean, if we have time in the end, it would maybe nice to show it as well. We can see if we can work it out. But I think we can discuss a little bit more what the new features were. I think the next one was pretty recently released. So I think around beginning of August. Was passwordless registration. So that's interesting because I think passwordless is at the moment becoming a bit of a buzz term. Everybody is talking about it. We had it since the beginning in the product. So you had the option to use passwordless authentication, WebAuthn, or with a security key, etc. So, Livio, what's passwordless registration now, and why should our users or customers actually care about it?
As you mentioned, it's a big buzzword at the moment, and we're really a fan of passwordless. So we're always trying to improve user experience and possibilities to use it. So we recently extended our APIs. You're now able to easier register another device. Before, you always had to log into console and were only able to register the device you already used. So, for example, you logged in using your iPhone or other FIDO device, and weren't not able to register another device such as Windows Hello, because you would have to log in using Windows Hello first. now you're able to get a link. You can, or will be able, there's an outstanding pull request we'll have to merge first. You will be able to log into console and create a QR code. This will be displayed in console, and you will be able to scan it or send this link to your email address, click on it, and get a registration form where you can register a second device. So easier and another possibility to register more devices and use ZITADEL from various and not just a single device.
That's great. I think because before it was more in the direction of passwordless was an afterthought. So you maybe only did a registration with the username password and then installed a multi-factor authentication, and then you added passwordless on top for convenience. So basically we turned it around and say now, okay, look, we have a possibility to do passwordless without actually passwordless password and multi-factor authentication, which is, I think, great because it improves, or it quite improves, the user experience, I would say. And I guess I haven't seen it yet. Maybe somebody in the comments will know if any other system does it. But for me personally, I've only seen kind of a registration flow where you do set up your password first and multi-factor, and then maybe on GitHub or something you can add your devices or add your security keys. But I haven't seen a flow actually where you can do that passwordless fashions first, and then have also like a fallback option to the second device, which is important, right? Because maybe you can explain. Why do you need actually the second device in this passwordless flow? Is it only for restoring, or is it's basically a backup, right?
Yeah, basically backup, or just the possibility if you're you don't have the possibility to use your other device, such as Windows Hello, or just on the way to somewhere and have only your iPhone or whatever next to you, so you could have another device using for usage.
Good, cool. Sounds interesting. So it's coming up in the next. You said it needs a change, and it's coming up in the next couple of days or weeks.
The API is already deployed, so you could basically use it using the API, but console will come within the next week, I'd say.
Sounds great. Yeah, and I think we also have a little workshop to maybe also do some of the registration flows and login flows and redo them. So plan a little bit around this. This new passwordless feature, basically to make that more accessible even in the registration of new users. Very cool. So maybe I looked through what we did over the summer, because it's everything on GitHub actually. I went through the commits, and there was a couple of things on the query side optimization. So I think, Silvan, you said it also in the beginning, you worked on that a lot. Maybe you can explain quickly what is the goal, what is the benefits, why do we need it, why do we work so much on this query side optimization? I think it's maybe not something that users are familiar, or kind of, if you look at the application, you don't see what's behind it, right? But maybe you can explain a little bit the concept, what we do there, and why this work is so important in the background. Yeah, that'd be great.
Basically, we already have a query side. As you see, you can query data. But the problem is that we think that scaling this part would be hard, and so we decided to refactor the whole query side. And that's what I'm basically doing at the moment. There is a lot of stuff with concurrency you have to manage. And that's why it takes so long, because it's heavy for testing and also heavy for implementing. And at the moment, the base parts are finished, and now we start implementing the API side for the new query side. Yeah.
Okay, so that will, yeah. I mean, it's a more technical thing, and I think, I mean, Florian, for example, talked also quite a lot in a couple of talks about this CQRS, if I correctly remember. So the pattern that we use. So we finished now. What you say is basically we finished now the read side of the models, and are going now to the right side, basically, right? So writing the events there in that refactoring. Okay.
No, the other way around.
Is it the other way around? Okay,
yeah.
good.
Command
Okay,
side
good.
to the right side was last year.
Okay, good. And so that will bring us then. What is it? So is it only performance, or will it also enable us to maybe? I mean, we also talked about, right, this the next thing that we want to do is more reporting, more analytics. Actually, that would help us as well, right, with this as a foundation.
It should cover all the parts. At the moment, it's only for the part we already have, but it's implemented in the way we think it should be possible to add new features with less implementation overhead than we had until now.
Yeah, I mean, it improves also some minor details, like the performance of how many cycles or how many read models can be updated at that time, how fast it will happen. It's primarily influenced from a restore perspective, like how much time do we need to restore a query model until it's ready to serve traffic. And for that, we need to improve the way how it is generated, or in event sourcing, you would call it projection. But in the end is how much time do we need from when an event is inserted until it's updated on the query side, where most of the list and search operations happen from ZITADEL. Someone is ringing.
Yeah, the biggest problem we had was when you have to recompute the whole view. So, for example, we implemented a failure and had to recompute all that stuff. It took too long, and now we cut the time many times with the new implementation.
Great. Okay. Perfect. Yeah. Livio is back. Very good. Perfect timing. Because the next thing I think we wanted to talk about is last week we posted on our channels the update that we achieved certification for one of our libraries. It's maybe Livio, I think you were much involved in that.
Yeah, right.
What is it? What did we certify? What did we certify? And why is this important? Why is this an important step?
So we basically certified our OIDC OpenID Connect library for two parts, or for the client part, also called relying party, with two profiles, so basic and config profile, which means we're now compliant with the specification, the OIDC relaying part specification, and you could basically use it to build a client, an OpenID Connect client for every compliant OpenID provider. So hopefully it's ZITADEL, but basically you could use it for any compliant OpenID provider, such as Okta, Auth0, and so on. But hopefully, again, use ZITADEL. And what we're up to next will be to certify the OpenID provider part of the library together with ZITADEL itself, so that we're fully compliant for the server part of OpenID Connect as well. Yeah, that's about it.
That's cool. And I think it's I mean, there are libraries out there, right, for Go that do something similar. What is the difference with our library? So I think it's open source, and it's actually, to my understanding, also the first one that is certified by the OpenID Connect or by the OpenID Foundation. What's the difference maybe to existing ones? And why did we redo this, or why did we produce something own?
Yeah, one part of it is when we started, there were some, but not a lot of libraries. A lot did or were not compliant, or do just some, yeah, let's call it weird stuff sometimes. And we also tried to extend the OAuth 2 Golang library. So we build upon this library and just extend it, or try to extend it with the OpenID Connect features. Yeah. Or Florian, do you have any additions to this?
I mean, a certification is great, because Golang was actually missing a certification for either the relying party or the origin provider. So basically, none of the available open source projects was certified until now. And as we are committed to also achieve the origin provider certification as well, we feel quite confident that this will help people who want to build either a server or a client based on Golang, because we actually just rely on the internals of Golang with GitHub as with the original OAuth implementation from Golang, as Livio mentioned. And so it shouldn't be that much of a security risk going with a certified library with a solid basis based on the official OAuth library. And we find that kind of an interesting approach for which could enable further people. And you are not reliant to Zitadel, so you can use it as to any other OpenID conform provider.
Okay, that's good. So how do I get started if I have a project with Go? I want to implement it with Go and want to use Zitadel. How do I get started? I think we have a quick start, right? That points it out, and the library is is linked there as well, right? Is this all you need to get to do it with Zitadel, or what do I need?
Hopefully. There are also examples in the library itself. So they're just basic authentication snippets where you can build small clients using the library, get started. And if anything is missing, just let us know, either in the discussions. Just contact us. We're happy to improve the documentation.
Great. Cool. Sounds good. So I think it's on GitHub. OIDC is the repo, and just put it there, or put a question also on Zitadel if you want. But I think that would be the right point there. I think what was also a little bit maybe more in the back end, but what I wanted to explore is we introduced Sentry, as far as I can see from what we did. And I think a couple of people worked on that. So what is it? What is Sentry? What does it collect? How does it help you? Or how does it help us? And how does it help us to improve the application? How does it help the users?
Sentry is basically an error tracking and performance monitoring tool. At the moment, we're using it mostly for error tracking. So every error we didn't handle, panics that happened, and so on, will get captured from the Sentry SDK and will be delivered to using their API, and will get them into their UI. We also see there how many users were affected, on how many machines the error occurred, and so on. yeah, so basically this helps us improve the quality of ZITADEL itself. So errors we didn't notice or didn't handle, we'll have to improve and are able to improve much faster. So you don't always have to raise an issue with us, basically, or maybe we already noticed that there is an error and we can fix this bug. We're also no, the other way around. We're thinking about using the tracing from Sentry as well, so we get an idea on how well ZITADEL is performing, how well the API is performing, and so on. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. This is not only relevant to our SaaS service, right? Because this is one instance. I think this will be also in dedicated instances, and is it also in the open source version embedded in it, or where do we gather that data, and can users, for example, in the open source project, can they opt out? How's it done?
Yeah, I can go in there. Sentry is definitely included in the open source version, but still, as we think privacy is quite important to us, we allow you to disable it or even reconfigure it to your own Sentry instance if you run the instance by your own. So basically, you can decide, I want to run ZITADEL somewhere with our help or without our help. Both ways it's possible. And if you do that, you can either disable Sentry, you can reconfigure it, or you can just leave it on and prompt us some errors. And actually, as we run the cloud service and dedicated instances, it helps us really to stay ahead of the curve, because in the cloud offering, we see errors much more often and much earlier than the dedicated instances. And so we can fix bugs upstream before they even happen to most customers. That's kind of the leverage we're trying to achieve with that. And actually that works out well, because we see some strange errors oftentimes with things like BingBot, which invokes our system, who then randomly prompts errors unhandled, and we can detect them early on and catch them, which really helps us improve the software quality.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. So it's basically, it helps us analyze what's happening in the different systems. So in our cloud service, but also in our dedicated instances that we run for customers, and then as well, if people want to, they can also send the data to us when using the open source version. So that will help us to gather more data in different environments and maybe different conditions, and helps us to get smarter how we run it. Yeah. Sounds good. Okay. Yeah. Anything else? I mean, I think there was a lot of small fixes and stuff and kind of other things that we did, but I think we covered the most important points. Was there anything else worth mentioning?
So what I did is mostly due to the fact that we are using Nextjs as our marketing page technology. I've written a small Nextjs login template, so you can get started real quick with that technology.
Okay, great. So these examples, they can, and the quick starts, right? They can be found either from the console or in our docs. And I think the example repos can be downloaded also. There is the example applications or boilerplates can be downloaded from our GitHub as well, right? There's a repo.
Right. Yeah. Right. It's called ZITADEL examples, and we have Python, Angular, Nextjs, and some others.
All right. Cool. Good. Maybe circling back to the beginning, would it be worth to maybe show quickly the private labeling feature? Because I think we went through the whole stuff in a good time, And before we move on to what didn't go so well, maybe show the private labeling. Is that possible? Should I can share it. Cool. So this is basically
Max, your voice is kind of not there anymore. Now I'm hearing it.
Now it's back.
Seeing it.
Okay, talking to myself, not the best thing. All right, good. Sorry about that. Okay, so I mean, you can see it here, right? It's already a little bit. It looks a little bit different than the plain vanilla version because we private labeled, I guess, our own organization VIT. So you can find in the organization, you can find these different policies, and I think what the interesting ones are for private labeling and for the customization of the whole thing are these four. Is that right? Yeah. So I think private labeling gives you the option to change the login, how it looks like, and how does the console look like. So update your CI, and the privacy policy and TOS. I think these are the links that you can define for your own organization. So when users sign up to ZITADEL or to your organization, or with now also without with an external login like social logins, you can define the relevant documentation that you actually would need in the B2B setup or B2C setup eventually. And message texts is it's everything. I haven't looked at it in much detail yet, but I think it's all the because it's so recent. But it's all the different texts you can define. Is that
the email templates? Yeah, those are the mails which are sent to the users. And if you click at one text field, you can see those chips,
nice.
Which then include your user data, and yeah.
That's good. And it's also, and I think it's also multilingual. So you can use at the moment German and English. We will extend the languages. Feel free to contribute if you're fluent in any language. Would be great. I think we will start also there doing it in other languages. But this looks really great. So this is all the templates that the message text that you have. Okay. Anything else? The login interface is texts. All right. Okay. This is okay. So the one is the message text is basically for emails. This one is for then for the interface. Yeah. So you can customize basically all the different aspects of the texts and the colors and so on and so forth. Cool. So this is back. Let's talk a little bit about issues and some of the fuck ups because I think that's also important. It's not all good. I mean, it's all good. We did a lot and we did great stuff, but sometimes also some things happen. So we had a couple of outages actually in June, July, and so on. Let's talk about them. I think the one was in end of June. Says database connection issue. Sounds interesting. Probably was interesting. Tell me what happened and what was the impact. And because it was a major outage, right? It was not a small thing. It was a major outage of the system. What happened? What did we do? How did we fix it? Hopefully we fixed it.
Shall I start?
Yeah, you can start. I will kick in afterwards.
I don't remember exactly how we noticed, but if I remember correctly, it was Sunday morning. I think it might be that error alerting triggered, and basically it was a small issue but big impact. So on our command side, so writing events, there was a missing check, which so we basically created wrong events, which then were handled on our query or projection side. There was panics. There were a lot of panics because we didn't just blackout. We were not able to handle these events because they would never. We didn't expect that they were ever going to happen, which then led to a complete, let's say, shutdown of our API. So you were not able to log in. A lot of systems crashed and took some time to get to the error.
Yeah, but I mean, the incident response was still quite fast. I mean, like 9:56 Central European time triggered alerts. Like 9:58 were people on hand and with hands on board, and we fixed the error in production, like with a hotfix, like on 10:57. The whole situation was totally recovered. So we had kind of 40 minutes from initial production impact to work around, and then additional 20 to the total fix of the problem. And in the end, it taught us a great lesson around the event sourcing problems that you can have in a production setup. If you miss a validation, you will get the hard time. And if that comes together with a bad handling of the error, you will have even harder time. And so it actually triggered multiple mitigations upstream, like fixing the validation, which was the root cause actually, and then also fixing how our application handles certain error states so that it does not crash totally. I mean, it's just an improvement which was really necessary, but it ended up being mitigated fast. So at least from that perspective, we were kind of happy.
And we did it sooner than expected, but it was a good trigger. Okay, but you said something interesting, right? It was on Sunday morning, so maybe Florian or somebody else shed a little bit of light on how we do this escalation, right? Because we run a productive system. We give guarantees to our customers, quite high guarantees actually, to have it highly available. If something happens, how do we handle that? Yeah. So how do we do alerting? So everybody is actually on deck and helps out even on a Sunday.
I mean, we actually have like two channels which are really relevant for alerts. The one is like I would dare to call it noise alerts. That's things that pop up like high CPU, high RAM. It gives you an indication about how your systems are handling the load and stuff. And on the other hand, we have kind of severe alerts. They just blow out like SMS and text messages when shit goes sideways. And actually, what triggered here were the severe alerts. So actually, we were alerted. So at least I was receiving SMS. We got text messages in Google Chat. We got emails. We got messages all over the place just to make sure that at least somebody will pick up the phone and see that is something going sideways. And as I remember it correctly, I guess Livio and I was first to check, and Silvan was kind of dropping in quite shortly afterwards, if I remember correctly. And that helped us really to isolate error early on, because you get like hands-on with experience and not just somebody who starts the system, but you get the software engineer on deck who actually knows how the application functions, and you then can firstly discuss how can I mitigate the problem to get the system up and running, and afterwards you do the debriefing to just get a hotfix out to get rid of that specific error to stabilize the system for the next few days and minutes, so that you can afterwards clean up the mess you got in.
Good. Thanks for the explanation. Yeah.
I think we could also mention that this implied how we implement the query side, as the issue came from there. We now check for panics and take care that the API still can answer a request, and read models don't get updated, but the API still recovers and can work.
Yeah, so we would call it circuit breaking. So if something goes sideways, the application tries to stay up.
That's a good thing. Sounds like a good thing.
It is actually.
Cool. I think now to one of more the I don't know. I find it funny, but I think there was another outage that was not that big, but it kind of it was a little bit. One of our customers, I think, did something, and I think the issue was labeled more like end session endpoint. And I think this cat and mouse game went a little bit on. So what happened there? What was the thing? And what did we do there?
Yeah, that's this was actually a strange one because we saw errors from another customer first because he reports his errors to us, and he always reported like I have a high latency on ZITADEL's API endpoint, and that happened like 3 times a day with strange non-reproductive pattern. And as we try to dig into that, we saw that some of our servers were really using a lot of CPUs. Like they utilized the total amount of CPUs available. And what we actually found out is that one of our customers had actually, I could say it's kind of a denial of service, because he made a lot of requests from his development computer to our API endpoints. And it was actually a combination of two problems, like the rate limiter not kicking in correctly, which we actually tuned shortly afterwards to adapt better for such situations. And as well, a problem of how the events are stored and returned for that specific operation. Like, I mean, the end session endpoint actually should write like, okay, I want to end my session, and it inserts an event into the database to make sure that you don't get any more tokens and stuff out of it. But it was around 800 requests per minute, which really blow the problem out of the water due to the combination of two factors: the rate limiter going wrong and the end session endpoint having a bug. And so we actually mitigated that by blocking the customer specific user agent with the mitigation mechanics we have already available. Like we can tell Cloudflare to mitigate so these persons, and they get a challenge like good old captcha to solve before they coming through, which stabilized the situation for us. And afterwards we could take time and get a hotfix rolling to mitigate the bug we had with the end session endpoint. And until now, we haven't seen that error happen again, because we now the rate limiter is tuned better. It will cope earlier with that load, and also the end session endpoint is quite fast now.
That sounds good. Yeah. So it's basically it was two different things, and we fixed both of them, right? And the rate limits exist. I mean, if you're interested, you can look it up. I think I know that we documented them and we improved them. But this is kind of then when you hit kind of a barrier, then yeah, now if you hammer us too hard on the APIs, you have to select a couple of lights or buses or whatever you get. And maybe you should talk to us and find out how we solve it differently, because I think there should be a way.
Yeah,
to do that.
What happened there was the good old classic redirect loop, like the developer logged in, logged out, logged in, logged out in a concurrent loop. And actually, I was wondering, Angular seems to be quite fast in such scenarios, because otherwise it wouldn't be possible to hammer out like 700 to 800 requests per minute doing just log in, log out redirects. but
Good. I mean, now to maybe a little bit more of a human factor. I think we also had a quick emergency maintenance beginning of July. I don't want to prey on it, but I think it also shows that there's always a human element. Fabian, what happened? I think I just read. Oh shit, wrong terminal or something, or wrong environment in the chat. But I wasn't involved that much.
Yes. Actually, this happened because we had a mistake on the query side. We built all our models, our read models, and we had a mistake there that some events, like in March or earlier, would not be handled correctly. We already fixed this bug, but some kind of events could not be processed. And there were like 1 or 2 customers who could not read something because these events would not be handled. And at the moment, we have an issue that we need a long time to recreate our read models because we have so many events. And if we clear a complete read model, we have to go through all the events and recreate it. And that's one of the points why we rewrite the query side. And our idea was to take our prod environment, put it on another environment, we call it IO, and then there rebuild this whole model. And after this, we could put it back to production. So we don't have a outage because it was actually, I think, on one of the authorization models. So if we would delete all these read models, you will not have an authorization and could not log in after. And we actually did everything fine. And then I should click clear the view on the IO environment, just that it will be start the rebuilding process. And I didn't see that I was still on the production system and clicked that the view should clear in the production. And
So
I
we had
realized
actually what we didn't want to do. We actually had it then in the production that day. Okay.
exactly, yeah.
Okay.
And I realized it. I just had to recreate 3 views. I realized it after 2. So the outage was not that big. Some parts of the system did still work. We could not see user authorizations in the management API, and I think when you had still a token, it was no problem. But if you just regenerated a new token, you could not log in afterwards.
Okay, because you didn't have the state, right? Because it's from my understanding, right? You aggregate the different events to get to kind of the last state, and if you recalculate it, then you lost a little bit in between, or you don't have the current state. Okay, and that's
exactly.
That's so, that's also what we talked in the beginning, right? Where Silvan is now doing a lot of work to make that faster. So if it happens, it shouldn't happen, but if it happens, it's at least faster to rebuild. But I think that's kind of the same thing, right?
Yes,
so
exactly.
Optimizing that aggregation of the events and building up the history. Okay.
Yeah. So in the future, the solution will be that when we say we just have to recompute a read model, that we say start recomputing a model, and we will do this. And when it's finished, we will with a temporary table or something like that. So when it's finished, we can say, okay, remove the old table and use the new instead. And at the moment, we just clear the complete read model and start from the beginning. So in the time where we start till it's finished, you will not have all the complete data.
All right. Good. I think there was also one. I'm switching to the next one. That was also a little bit of cat of mouse game. I think we had a couple of things with different forms of caching, and I don't know. There was a couple of things going on, right? And maybe some customers realized it, but sometimes there were missing pages, or the pages didn't load that much. What was happening there? Because I think we quite now fixed it. There was a couple of things, but I think I haven't seen that stuff in the last couple of weeks. Florian is laughing. Why are you laughing? Is it still there, or still a cat and mouse game? Or
let's say there is a window of opportunity for the error to happen, which could be around 10 seconds. So if you actually trigger that exact moment or you don't. I mean, what actually happens in the background is when we are rolling deployments, like deploying new applications, there is always the possibility that your browser will get the first part of the application, like console, from one of the containers, and afterwards the old assets he will try to get from another container. And so it can happen that half of the application loads fine and the other half gets like error served because it is not there to serve. But we mitigated most of it now by setting a better cache control headers to the assets we serve, because we had a minor bug there. We were serving like 404 page errors with a long cache control header, like, I mean, long, really long, like a year long. So yeah, we actually cached like the 404 for a year. And the problem was that the 404 was actually from that pod like valid, but the actually pod who would then serve the traffic afterwards has actually had the artifact but couldn't serve it because Cloudflare thought, hey, I need to cache that 404 to the customers. And so it's actually to a combination of problems like the CDN behaving strangely in combination with resetting bad cache control headers. And we ironed that out like for 3 to 4 weeks now ago, and the situation really improved there. And as said, it's more or less impossible to hit that error again, but I would dare to say more or less, because it's always possible to hit such an error. But in the end, yeah, if the customer hits F5, the problem is solved now, and in the past it wouldn't be solved actually. So it shouldn't happen again.
yeah, so it's good. I mean, it's a complicated topic, but I understand that kind of if you release something, right, then you have two different states and they're not converged yet, and it takes a little bit of time. Yeah, I haven't seen it over the last couple of weeks, and I think we also didn't have any reports on that. Yeah. So maybe let's move on a little bit of what's coming next. I think there's one feature that it is labeled as a feature and not as a fix. I think it was about extending the capabilities of our identity brokering or account linking to external IDPs. But that's kind of in between an upcoming feature and something that didn't work yet. Maybe Fabi, what is that? So we have identity brokering, right? And you said you wanted to extend certain things in the endpoints to make it possible to get in more social logins or login providers actually. What did you do, and what's the state of that? What did you encounter there on your way?
So at the moment we provide in ZITADEL that you can use identity brokering, but only with providers that are OIDC compliant. And we found out that not so many providers are OIDC compliant. So our thought was that we just extend it with OAuth endpoints. So it will be possible to also register providers which are not directly OIDC compliant, but OAuth. And yeah, we actually implemented it. And while testing, we found out that it's not that easy as we thought, because we don't get an ID token after the authorization request. So we will not know what user it is. So we only have an ID. But if you like to register in ZITADEL with a identity of another provider, we somehow need to create the user. So we need a first name, a last name, an email address, and all that stuff. And in OIDC, it's actually really simple. So we just take the information from the ID token. But if you only have OAuth, we will call an explicit endpoint, and that's always different for each provider. So we didn't finish that feed because it was just too much work to implement something for each different provider. So we would enable an endpoint for GitHub, an endpoint for Apple, or something like that. But now we are working on after you register with an identity provider, you get to an overview page where you see all the informations we got, and we will be able to allow that the user fills this information by himself. So if we can't get it from the provider itself, we just provide a formula where you can fill the informations we don't get, and then register with this informations you like to fill in. So it will take some weeks, but after we will work out to add more identity providers here.
Yeah, it sounds a little bit odd, right? Because you would think that everybody is kind of the same, and everybody is kind of conforming to the standards. But I think that was the assumption that we had in one way. But in the end, it's kind of is it right? I understand it correctly. It's kind of so Microsoft does it a little bit differently than maybe Apple ID or GitHub does it a little bit differently as well. So you need kind of to have either you really have to implement every identity provider, at least the bigger ones, right? Or you can use, I have it open and then maybe you can share it in a second. Or you can use basically our configuration. So when you go to the login policy, that's what you meant, right? You can configure these identity providers and give them feed Citadel the required information.
Yes, exactly. But this configuration we extended with some more endpoints, so you can what was it, like the token endpoint and the authorization endpoint, I think.
Yep.
In the OIDC conform providers, we just take the issuer and take the information there, and we extended like that. We just you can give some specific endpoints, and we call this instead of the issuer and take the endpoints from there. But this was just not enough to get all the informations we need to register a user.
Okay, but so this will be something that we will be working on over the next weeks, I guess. Then, or yeah, it's one of the things that's coming up, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I think we're quite at the end. I think we have a couple of minutes left, and overshoot maybe a little bit, but let's talk what's coming up next in Citadel. So what are the big things that we're currently working on? What's coming in the next weeks and months?
Mm-hmm. So currently we are working on lockout policy. It's like one policy more to define when a user should be locked out. At the moment, we just provide like how many password check attempts you like to do, so that the user is locked. If he maybe just enters 3 times the wrong password, he is locked, and then an administrator has to unlock the user. This feature should come, I think, this month. We are currently testing it on our dev environment, and after it goes to the production. Then one of the next features is user metadata. We have a lot of customers, they say like they want to store additional information to a user, and so that we don't have to implement all the specific fields because we don't know what each customer needs. We just made a way of metadata, so it's like a key value store, and you are able to store some key values to a user and request it, and soon it will also be able to request it in a token, so you get all the information from the user directly after the authorization request. And then we have some more custom scopes. This is also a feature that some customers like to have, Like at the moment, it's only possible to request a primary domain, and then you will say that it's only allowed to log in to Citadel with a user from my domain, and then you get also the private labeling. And now it's possible that a user or a customer doesn't want to restrict to only my company's users, but wants the private labeling shown. So we will enable a way to just trigger the private labeling, so you will have all your branding, but not the restriction of users that can log in.
So if I, for example, have ACME company and I have a private labeling right for my register flow, I could basically then make it possible that people come to that register flow and see basically my private labeling, right?
Exactly.
Or my login with a link or something. So it's kind of they don't see first Citadel and then have to enter the email address and then kind of the private labeling changes, but you actually have kind of a way to give that it's kind of a parameter or a scope or whatever. So it's changed directly. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, and then there are some more scopes just to enable some stuff in the login process directly, or to call some data in the ID token and something like that.
Okay, nice. I think we have also the roadmap for even if we want to look further in the future. I think we have a lot coming up this year as well, because we are now developing more and more features. I think you should check out maybe our GitHub and check out the milestones. It's also some parts are also listed on our page Citadel CH on the pricing page. Actually, you find it on the bottom. If you have new features or something, let us really know. We do that all in the open. So we prefer actually if you go to our GitHub and start maybe a discussion, start a new idea, also discuss the stuff that's already in there, and let us know that you're interested in that feature. Yeah, that's either on the roadmap or maybe if it's something new and you need it, let us know there. If you want to be more private, drop us also an email. I think our contact is available on the website. That's good. What we also do, I think we did it the first time in July. We do a Ask Us Anything session. So we actually organized a more interactive way. So it was not a live stream in that way, but it was a Meet session, a Google Meet session, where we had an exchange with customers, with people interested in Citadel, also from the open source side, but also from the cloud side, to talk through these. To some of the things we talked about Citadel, we talked about new features, we talked also a little bit about CAOS. It was really a Ask Us Anything session, yeah, as the name said, obviously. And we will also organize these kind of sessions on a more regular basis. I think we also will do maybe one in August already, or early September or something. The date is not yet fixed, but you can also kind of follow us on Twitter or on GitHub or on LinkedIn or whatever, and get updated. We will post it on these channels when we do the next session. Yeah. I think we don't have any questions. I haven't seen any questions from the different from LinkedIn or from YouTube, and we're already kind of a little bit over. So is there anything else from your side or that we should talk about?
Well, I guess the velocity speaks to itself. Like, we're kind of changed from running the system at its baseline. We're switching now to a more feature-driven approach, where we really get features out of the door. And I mean, some interesting things that will land later this year is like SAML support, which seems kind of important to people. Or more reporting and then analytics focused topics. So if people have like inputs what they're trying to achieve for, or what they await from such a system as ZITADEL, you might drop your comment on the GitHub discussions page to shape the feature even more towards the intended users you have. And I guess that will really help people to run a secure system without running the secure system.
Great. Yeah, I hope it actually works on all the channels. I think I saw a little bit of side chat at the beginning. I hope they solved it. Anyways, the recording will be available either on YouTube, and I think we will also put it on the blog, maybe with also some different snippets from that talk. So if you're interested, go ahead and watch it later. Or I guess you saw it and you reached the end. With that, I think thank you very much, and yeah, have a nice day.
Thank you. Bye.
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 Bye-bye.